Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gyeongseong Creature Season 2, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we start the episode off getting a peek at Seongjo's childhood, which is so effed up, seeing that, oh, it was Maeda that raised him as her son, which obviously, considering who his mom is, and considering Maeda's part to play in all of that, because she did call her Akiko for a second. I was like, wait, I couldn't remember, I was like, did they do that to other people, or was that just a way for Ishikawa to kind of hide the fact is, like, that was his Korean mistress? I don't remember, or did they, or was part of that like taking away like some? I feel like I remember commenting on that in season 1, being like, oh, did they take away their Korean names and give them Japanese names to kind of erase, extra layer of Korean cultural erasure type of situation? I can't remember, but it's like, yeah. Either way, it's just all kinds of layers of kind of like, and knowing like you took the child. I mean, the child was taken from her by Kato when she was giving birth, just because he needed an experiment, and now for you to take him under your wing, and all the poor people that sadly died by his hand, but then that one lady also got killed because she was a witness, and you can have people, you don't want any too many loose ends. The moment there's that young woman that's beside her, I was like, oh, that's the older lady that you kind of initially assume is an older Maeda, but it's like, no, that's her assistant, just younger. The old lady that's by her side, that's her just when she was younger. But yeah, which also goes back to the question I had previously, which we don't get an answer to, is that Seongjo is like 80 years old, yet he does seem like he might have aged like a normal human being up to a certain extent. So that was my question of like, how did that work? Because I assume like as a very young age, you just wouldn't age, but I think it's probably more like a Saiyan situation of you just age extremely slowly. So whereas he looks like he's really 80 years old, he probably ages more like he's probably like in his 20s or 30s. But it's just like, so that means like the aging process is like maybe like the Najin makes you age like, doesn't completely stop your aging, it just severely slows it down to maybe like a quarter of what it typically would be, maybe a quarter to maybe a third or something like that. So maybe that's how that works. So once he got to an adult enough age, he stopped aging. Well, not stopped aging, he just ages at such a slow rate. It'll probably be a very, very long time before he even appears to look like an old man. I'm sure it's good. I mean, another recent example would be like Invincible, I guess, would be another example, but just obviously like Saiyan's aging rate kind of immediately came to my mind, because like a Viltrumite aging rate, that's on a whole other level. But either way, and it's sad too, because he's like, yeah, I thought I was special, but then he's getting like experimented on by Kato, because they're trying to understand why he doesn't do a full transformation like Shiak's mom did. And it's like, well, it's because he was in the womb when his mom was, like basically her Najin passed from her to him while he was in the womb, and it's like, basically it's kind of like his mother's maternal instincts kind of got passed on to him, because they're referencing Shiak's mom, and it's like, right, hers activated when she was trying to protect her daughter. So it's kind of a similar thing here, which you can kind of see that like it seems like Maeda wants to take advantage of that. And I guess it's like, I don't know if it's a double pissed off thing of like, well, he's the child of your husband's mistress, and hearing about that pisses you off, plus also referencing Shiak's mom in the same conversation extra pisses you off. So, but yeah, he overhears like this entire conversation about everything, and just kind of reminds him of like, right, I thought I was special, but I'm not. I was never like, I'm a means to an end. I'm a tool. That's all he was ever seen as by Maeda. So we see her sending him off on a mission. She's like, right, you kind of have to do this for me. And he reluctantly does. It has something to do with Jang, but you don't really know the context. Well, we know he releases Jong Hyuk, and he makes it seem like that was just his crazy decision. And like, oh, I know what you're up to and what you want. And then we finally get an answer to what it is that he wants at the end. So him releasing Jong Hyuk is the extra middle finger to that dude. But because like I said, it's not to the end of the episode we find out what home dude wants. And it turns out, well, since we're on the subject, we find out at the end of the episode, his daughter, I would assume it's I don't know if neurological disease is the proper term, but it seems like she might have some kind of debilitating motor function disease, because he's like, she can't walk, but even when she's using her fork and her hands are shaky. So I think she lost function of her legs, and now she's losing function because she wants to play the cello again, and the way her hands are shaking, it must mean like eventually like she's going to lose a lot of even more motor functions going forward. So he's a father just trying to help out his daughter. So we're kind of seeing like, not necessarily that like it's a thing of, oh, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for my daughter. Like maybe that's why he allowed the previous chairman to do that to him, because maybe he knew like, okay, maybe my daughter has a disease and I want to be able to, I don't want her to fully have to become what we're becoming, because there's also a chance she might not survive because it's not a guarantee. So he wanted to wait, and he chose Jong Hyuk because not only did he survive the Najin, they want to like take it out of him and transplant it into his daughter, but they want to make sure it's a fully mature one that will allow her like motor functions to fully recover, so she'd be able to walk again and play the cello. So, but that's what I'm saying, like Seong Jo releasing him in particular, releasing Jong Hyuk in particular was the biggest middle finger to him. And I don't think that was Seong Jo just coming up with that on his own. It had to be Maeda that told him to do that, with the express purpose of knowing how important like the Najin inside of him is to home dude. So, because at first when he said that, I was like, oh, does he have like some grand plan or something like that? It's like, no, his plans is like on a much smaller scale. Like I said, that's probably why he let Kato do what he did, because he's like I said, he probably knew what was going to what the future held for his daughter. Maybe she already experienced some of that maybe she had already lost use of her legs maybe at a younger age, and that made him decide like, okay, like this disease or whatever it is going to spread, and I want to get like on, like I want to do everything I can to immediately jump on that. He said the previous chairman like gave him the Najin, but we have no idea when he got it. I'd assume like obviously later in life, but we don't know if it's been like a couple years or what, how long he's had the Najin. Because we also don't know how long the previous chairman's been dead, but I mean, it's like his son's running things and his son's older like that, so you'd assume but I don't know. It just, I guess it all depends. I mean, the lady serving Maeda, it's been like maybe less than 80 years. It's probably been like at least like 60, higher in 60s to 70 years. So I don't know if he would have been alive for the past few years and then finally passed it on to his son. I don't know. Once again, there's probably a lot of those details we probably won't get the nitty gritty on, but still. So that's kind of like the opening to all of this, kind of that's getting set in motion. And then we catch up with Jong Hyuk, after getting released, he attacks that poor guy in the train. I think the train station, ends up getting killed, and then it turns out he went off and killed 2 more people. Sadly, he can't control himself. And it's so sad too when his mom saw the news, because my fear was like his mom was going to be around him and he's going to lose himself and end up inadvertently killing his mom. I figured that's where that story was going to go. We might not go in that direction, but there's always a strong possibility we still get there. I hope not, but it's a possibility. It's probably going to be tragic in either regard. Either he's going to end up killing her, or just her son's going to end up dying and there's no saving him in general. So. But either way, we also have Jang and Cheok in bed together, and it's so cute because it's just this sweet thing of like, yeah, they had their intimate moments in season 1, but now it's just like they get to enjoy those moments without everything else happening around them. It's like they just get to bask in those moments after all these decades of being separated, and for her just be like, if this is a dream, don't wake me up. And just her being like, I miss you so much, and just like I'm reminded every day that I did, and just them cuddling and holding each other is so beautiful and sweet. But that's interrupted with Seong-jo showing up and even admitting to them, like, yo, Jong Hyuk, yeah, I'm the one that let him out. And it's like, for what purpose? He's like, yeah, so the world can see. He's like, they'll never believe unless they see for themselves. So he's giving some BS reason for doing what he's doing. Because he made it seem like, oh yeah, this will be more fun and trying to cause some chaos. But it's like, well, we know there's more to it because he's got like some kind of pen or some injecting like type of pen with him. And we just don't, at the time, we didn't know what that necessarily was. We also had the previous night when Jong Hyuk's mom called Detective Yu, or is he Detective Yu or Captain Yu? I think he might be both. Whatever the case may be. It was a conversation of the way the conversation was happening of like, oh yeah, how could you suspect Jang and stuff? Like all that he's done for you. I was like, wait, what? I was like, well, he knows an antenna like you. So it's like, wait, is he one too? And we find out, yeah, he is. So I guess in my head, I assumed Jang only started this network after losing his memories and becoming Hojay. But it's like, no, this network of antennas, it pre-existed him losing his memory. Who knows how long he had it, like this network in his service, but that's how you knows Jang. Well, they probably had run-ins over like the past year after he lost his memory, but it's also interesting, meaning like he was super hush-hush about it. I mean, once again, Jang was probably going around using Hojay as his identity in this particular section of his life, but I don't know. I just thought that was fascinating. And I guess like they didn't want to like overwhelm him by telling him like, yeah, we actually know each other. Like we built a rapport post you losing your memories, but I don't want to overwhelm you by being like, well, I actually knew you before you lost your memories. It could also be that Yeon-gil handled Jang was aware of the network and maybe he's under the impression that Yeon-gil's the one that started it because Yeon-gil wanted to minimize any true connection that Jang had with his previous life. So Jong Hyuk's mom dropping the whole Master Yang of it all made me go like, wait, does that mean like she dropped that on purpose because she wanted him to kind of remember who he was previous? But it's like they don't know about the whole like him being like 100 years old and the whole Najin of it all, but they just know Jang from who they knew him before he lost his memory. So I'm like, maybe they were trying to like seep in little breadcrumbs to potentially help him remember. And maybe, like I said, Yeon-gil told them not to really do stuff like that, so that's probably why she never pushed it too much, except for in that one conversation they had. But either way, a lot of that's pure conjecture based on like the information we've gotten so far. Yeah, they ultimately ended up getting Jong Hyuk into custody and ended up, now it's like, well, what do we do with him? We had to tase him to calm him down and he's still acting crazy. So Jang decides like, all right, we're going to go there and deal with this because he knows like one of two things is going to happen. Either Gyeongseong is going to capture him again, or they're going to kill him to cover up their tracks. So, and he ended up being right because they do eventually show up. But I love that he was ready to go and he was making sure that Cheok stays, and she's like, no, I'm going with you. He's like, no, you're not fully recovered. She's like, see, I'm fine. He's like, yeah, but I don't want you in danger. I don't want to see you getting hurt again, or I don't want to be responsible for putting you in danger. And she's like, oh, you're trying to protect me. She's like, it's the 21st century. You got a very old school mindset. He's like, yeah, I do, but you're still not going. He's like, I might not look it, but I am 100 years old. And yes, my way of things are very outdated, but I do believe it's a guy's job to protect a woman. And for her, it's like, I don't want to just be protected. I want to be by your side. And then her smiling, and he's like, that's actually cheating, you smiling like that. He's like, okay, one more smile, and she does it. I was like, look at you two being so damn adorable. So yeah. But Seong-jo tries to get Jang to run away. And I think that was him like regret. He's like, I don't want to have to do what I need to do, and if you stick around, I will be forced to. So I am legitimately telling you, run away now, live your life. But for Jang, it's like, I can never, there's no life I could ever find like by running away, you know? So it's like I want to see this through, especially considering the history of like so many people being hurt, so many people are being affected. He fought this battle before, and it's like, yeah, it's in me, and it's also in Cheok to see this through to the end. So Cheok was not too keen on him rolling through as well. But they had a really interesting conversation because we got more context about the day that Jang like lost his memories a year ago. What happened? Because was it last episode? Seongjo was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I kind of didn't show up then. It's like he was late." Well, we find out that he says like at the time he's like, "I thought I was ready and willing to die for Jang. Turns out I wasn't." And so when he told his mom all this, his mom was kind of like, "Oh, you're really gonna die for Jay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I believe this." It's like he's always accepted me for who I am, and she's like, "I've accepted you. You were the child of a courtesan, and I, despite reservations by me and many others, I took you under my family name, and this is how you repay me." She's like, "All right, bet. So you wanna die for Jay? Cool." And she injects him with the thing that makes it so that his Najin goes to sleep. With the Najin sleep, it basically makes you a human. And she's like, "Okay, cool. Now that you're 100% a human, now you get to see what it's like to live as a human, because you can now die. You will bleed. Things will, like, things hurt before, but now you're going to die." And it's a scary experience for someone like Seonjo, because he's always been like, yeah, he could be afraid of things, but he always had like never had to worry about death itself, because it's like, I'll always regenerate, I'll be fine. I've always been tougher than anyone else. So death has never been as much of a concern for him, but now it became this reality. So you can understand why it's scarier to him than anyone else. Like Cheok and Jane have that fear of death because they were humans beforehand, so they know that fear, whereas Seongjo never had that particular fear. But I thought it was interesting and kind of sad. It's beautiful, but also sad. Like the fact is that Cheok tried to comfort him by being like, "No, it's okay. Like everyone's got a fear. Like you having that fear isn't anything crazy. Like plenty of some humans have a fear of dying. Some have a fear of living. So." I mean, it's also interesting to have that conversation of like, "Oh yeah, I'm willing to die for Jang." Cheok was. She purposely like gotten away and protected him and almost died for him if it wasn't for the Najin. So it's like, and Jang has put his life on the line multiple times too. So it's like they both know what it's like to die for each other. So that's the sad thing, is that in Seongjo's case, he just couldn't find the courage to be willing to die. Because that incident, he was there that day at the bridge, but he was so scared of like, I can't die now, so I'm afraid to go out there. It's like, yeah, it's, when you're not invincible or like doesn't have that infinite regeneration anymore and can possibly die, like that's a scary time once again, especially for him to like try and jump into the deep end on something like that. So he wanted to help Jang, but his fear of death like overrode him. And his mom knew exactly. I can't believe it referred to her as his mom. Jesus, Maeda knew exactly what she's doing. Like the woman is cruel and a terrible, terrible person. So either way, we had that. We had Home Dude and those from Gyeongseong like showing up to retrieve Jonghyuk, and there's not much you could do because it's like, well, they've got like higher, like the company, they probably got connections with people in the government to be able to sign off on something like that. So it's confidential, so they didn't really need, they're able to give this BS excuse of like, well, the reason why he's acting like that is because Jonghyuk is affected with something, we're looking into it, we're trying to mitigate casualties and stuff like that. So there wasn't much they could do under this circumstances in this situation. So ultimately they end up being able to leave with him, and I love that Jisoo follows. I'm scared because I feel like Jisoo could easily die. I love that she calls up Yu later on being like, "Oh, I'm following them. I'm sorry, I know the case is supposed to be over, but I'm going to see this through." And he's like, "Finally, you're doing some work." He's like, "All right, keep following him and don't lose them and report back to me." So he's giving her the cosign. it seems like, based on how weird that scene was, where like one of his men is on the outside looking, makes me go like, oh, one of them must be in it. Like, I don't know if he's like a Najin in particular, but maybe he's like on the payroll from, he's like a regular human that's on the payroll from the biotech company. So it just that, and him walking off later on, it's like him probably calling to be like, he probably like picked up, or maybe he read Yu's mouth or something, knowing like, oh, I know where Jisoo is. Like, I'm gonna let you know like a regular cop is following you type of thing. So I don't know. Which is interesting because we actually never actually saw. I'd assume. I actually don't remember if we ever saw which direction Jisoo went when she was following, like whether she followed Jang or not. I think she. Like I said, I don't think we saw which direction she went, but I think it's kind of like she most likely followed Seongjo and Cheok, but I could be mistaken. But yeah, we find out because Cheok was initially suspicious of like, oh, maybe you released him to kind of act as bait to get the two of us, and it's like that was kind of partially the plan, but not really. Cheok was always the target because Maeda wants to make him suffer. That was the whole point of like her orchestrating everything, was to make each one of them suffer, and in particular to make Cheok suffer. Like, once again, this is her way to get back at her for not being able to get back at Cheok for like 80 years, you know. And so, which even, you know, Home Dude and what's the current CEO's name? It's like Shinjio, I believe. Like Home Dude, main dude, the father who's trying to help his daughter, was like, yo, I know that Seongjo was behind this. He did it on purpose because Maeda. He's like, I told you and warned you, like, you should be weary of her. The moment she brought, like, Jang into the picture and tried to bring him back, I told you to be weary of that, but you didn't listen. So he's like, you're right. The previous chairman did give me a Najin, but that was to protect the interest of this company. And whether that's Jang, your incompetence, or Lady Maeda's machinations, anything gets in the way of protecting this company, I will put a stop to it. So it's like, right, track down Joan Hyuk and we'll deal with the Maeda situation. We'll have a conversation with her when we get back. And it's like, no, that's not going to go the way. I mean, I could see like Shinjio just bowing down to her and capitulating to whatever she wants. I could just easily see that. But either way, Seongjo ended up hitting Cheok with the Najin Counselor, the thing that puts her into sleep. So, and I'm assuming maybe she wants Seongjo to kill her, or maybe it's like bring her. I would assume you'd want to do it yourself, so bring her back here to me as a normal human. But you'd also, because it's like getting Seongjo to be the one that do it would also hurt Jang too, because he does like Seongjo, just like Seongjo likes him too. So it's like, once again, that's why Seongjo was like, yo, leave, go with the woman, kind of live whatever life you can. At the same time, we had Jang and the father trying to help his daughter clashing. He's just like, yeah, continue to be a pain in my ass. And I was like, oh, do you trust Seongjo? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, oh, poor woman, talking about Cheok. But I think his faith in Seongjo will come through. Now, it could just end up being Jisoo helping. But I think when it's all said and done, I don't think Seongjo is going to kill her or play along like Maeda wants him to. I think that conversation with her did strike a chord with him, but I think he's going to be playing the lone con against his mom. We'll see. Once again, I didn't do it in quotes. I was about to say, like, this is audio, you can't see me anyway, but I didn't do it in quotes. I should have done it in quotes because I'm like, I need to just not even put the label of mom on her. She needs to just be Maeda. But either way, it's going to be interesting to see the clash between Home Dude and Jang next episode. I mean, because Jang's got at least one knife on him, but we also don't know what else he might have stockpiled on himself. But he's going up against a sword. I was like, I'd assume a katana, but I don't know. Could be a Tachi, but I'm sure it's most likely a katana. But either way, I'm very excited to see where the next episode takes us with this. It is the season finale. I looked it up ahead of time because, once again, season 1 was split up like 7 episodes for the first part, and then like a week or two, like almost like a month later or so, maybe a couple weeks later, they released like the last 3 episodes of the season. So I was curious to see if this is the same thing. And unless I'm mistaken, it appears to only be 7 episodes for the season. So this will be the season finale, I believe. Like, I could be wrong after looking some stuff up, but I'm going to wait till, once again, just to avoid spoilers, I won't look up anything until after I watch the episode. But yeah, it seems like the next episode's the season finale. So I'm excited to see how this all plays out and where this all ends up going. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.